Hello and welcome to another Wolftime gaming video. We're going to be continuing to build the Separatist fleet for Star Wars Armada in this video, and today we're going to be looking at the two large ships that were recently released. They are absolutely fantastic looking vessels. I mean, the detail on them is exquisite. To be honest with you, there's not a lot I want to really be doing, and I don't really know if it's going to make a difference. So we'll have a look at what we can do. Before we do though, let's get that kettle on. First off, because of the amount of detail in these vessels, I thought we'd have a little look at the actual ships themselves. I mean, you've got the Requisite class here. It's a bit of an unusual looking ship, very different from anything that the Republic have, or any sort of usual starships. I think it's a great looking vessel, and I really loved the shape of this. I like how it goes quite small in the middle down to the engines at the rear. I think the whole design of the vessel is great, and I'm really pleased they went with this one for Armada. There are a few little bits that haven't got detail on though, and then we look at the invisible hand. I mean, this thing is absolutely fantastic. There's hardly anywhere on it actually that I can see where they've missed any of the detailing. They've put loads of detail onto the actual ship itself, and usually you miss a bit of shading. I mean, there's bits on the bottom there we can sort of add to, but as a whole I think it looks absolutely fantastic straight out of the box. And there's not a lot really I think that I want to do to these ships to add the extra bit in like we did with the other ones. The first thing I am going to do though is just at the bottom of the Requisite class here, we've got that sort of grey bit that attaches to the base, and I think that looks really, really unusual, so I'm going to paint that black. All I'm using is a contrast black Templar from Games Workshop, and it goes on really, really easily. It didn't need to put a base coat or anything like that. It just drops straight on there, and that makes it disappear a little bit into the rest of the vessel. I am going to add a little bit of yellow paint just to the actual engines of the invisible hand, purely because I think the colour they've gone with is really washed out, and I wanted to go with quite a dark red as the base red, and then go brighter in the middle, as I did with the other ships that you get in the core box that you've probably seen. And just to highlight the centre of it here, you can see I'm just dotting a little bit of like a bright yellow paint. I think I'm using a little Flash Gits yellow just in the middle of the Avalanche sunset I've used as the base there, and that's really as much as I wanted to do on these. I am going to add a little bit of shade into the whole of the vessel, I think, purely because they look very clean at the moment. So I've grabbed a little bit of Nuln Oil, I've washed it down as I did with the core box, just about a 50-50 wash. I'm just going around the whole ship now. As you can see, there are some particular areas that don't have a lot of shading on them. You got the bit to the top of the vessel there that I've just done. Around the base is, the bottom of the ship hasn't got a lot, but obviously you don't really see that, so I don't really mind that as such. But what I am doing here is going over the whole of the vessel, like all the panels and everything, purely to give it that little bit more of a worn look, because it is very bright, it is very clean, and I wanted to give it that sort of dirty feel. And Nuln Oil is absolutely fantastic. If you've seen any of my videos before, you'll know that this is sort of my go-to for this type of thing. If you're new to the channel, obviously, you've seen this for the first time, but you can see straight away as soon as it goes on there, it darkens down. But the great thing is it drops into those recesses really, really nicely and adds quite a lot of shading in there. You can concentrate around those areas as well. You don't need to do the whole panels. I don't think if you wanted to have it look really clean, you could just drop it straight into those sort of recesses and things like that. The Requisite class is exactly the same. I really concentrated around the darker sort of green areas on the vessel initially, thinking about leaving the rest of it and not looking at the panels. But when I did start to look at the actual grey panels on the top of the vessel, I did notice there's quite a lot of detail on there that you don't really see with the paint scheme they've gone with. So adding the Nuln Oil drops into those recessed areas, drops into the raised either side of the little raised areas just on the actual hull of the vessel, and just adds that little bit more Is it worth it? I mean, we'll wait to see the comparison at the end, but you know, it does make a difference to the ships, I think, and it also protects the vessels as well. It's one good thing about using Nuln Oil. It almost acts as a type of varnish, I suppose. I mean, you can wash it off, don't get me wrong, but it sort of protects the vessel a little bit. You know, you can, if you're playing around, knocking them around, throwing them in and out of, you know, boxes and things like that, if you don't have those foam trays or anything like that, this does protect it that little bit more, I suppose. But I mean, looking at the finished vessels now, I think they look pretty amazing. I mean, we just glancing at the side of the hull here, you know, the detail on them is unbelievable, and the Nuln Oil just picks out those tiny little bits that I think are missing, or rather were missing, you know, when they didn't have the shading in there. You can see the Nuln Oil sat quite close to all the raised areas. It's dropped into the recesses quite nicely on the actual hull of the vessel. I think the main areas that it's really stood out is that green sort of area on the recusant. On the actual invisible hand, I think the hangers look a little bit better. I like that sort of dark grey area just in front of that vertical stabilizer. I think that looks quite nice now. It's got a little bit of detail on it. There was a little bit lacking there. Just the front of the ship as well, that sort of the prow that sticks out the front there, those indents didn't have any sort of shading in there, and I think adding the Nuln Oil really adds that depth to the miniature and makes it look that little bit better. I mean, overall you could see that the detail on it's amazing. I really didn't want to paint over this completely. I mean, that's the finished article. You know, I think it's definitely worth it. I've, you know, kind of took not very long with these, probably, you know, maybe half an hour waiting for the paint to dry and stuff like that in between coats and things, but generally happened really quickly, and I'm really pleased with how they turned out. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure you go and check out the other videos on the channel now. There's loads of great videos on there, lots of different painting videos, not only for Star Wars Armada, but we always look at Legion. There's a few fantasy bits on there as well as, you know, the 40k stuff. But thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.